The throne room of the Valoran Dominion stretched for nearly a mile. Its walls were made of black crystal that had been harvested from dying stars. Golden light fell from windows set high above, and in that light stood Supreme Arbiter Keth Voran, ruler of 2,000 conquered worlds. He was tall, even by Valoran standards. His skin was the color of dark blue metal, and his 4 eyes glowed with a soft orange light. He had ruled the Dominion for 300 years, and in that time he had never known defeat. His empire covered half the galaxy. His armies numbered in the trillions. His word was law across 1,000 star systems. Today, his scientists had brought him something new. Something amusing. "Show me," he commanded. The hologram appeared in the center of the throne room. It showed a small planet, mostly blue with patches of green and brown. White clouds swirled across its surface. It was pretty, in a simple way. Nothing special. "We call it Earth," said Chief Scientist Melis. She was old. Her blue skin faded to gray, but her mind was still sharp. "It orbits a yellow star in the outer reaches of the Orion Arm. Our probes reached it 6 cycles ago." Keth Voran walked around the hologram. "And the inhabitants?" The image changed. Now it showed the creatures that lived on this small world. They were soft things, with only 2 eyes and 2 arms and 2 legs. Their skin came in different shades of brown and pink. They had no claws, no armor, no natural weapons of any kind. "They call themselves humans," Melis said. "They are interesting. They look weak." "They are weak, Supreme Arbiter. Their bodies require constant maintenance. They must sleep for 1/3 of each day. They need water constantly. Their bones break easily. They die from temperature changes that our children would not even notice." Keth Voran made a sound of disgust. "Then why do you waste my time with them?" Melis touched a control, and the hologram changed again. Now it showed the human civilization. Cities of glass and steel. Machines that flew through the air. Devices that let them communicate across their world in an instant. "They have developed technology," Melis said. "Primitive, but real. They have split the atom. They have sent machines to other planets in their system. In another 1,000 years, they might develop faster than light travel. In 1,000 years, they will be our slaves," Keth Voran said. He turned away from the hologram. "What else?" "There is something unusual about them, Supreme Arbiter. Something I have not seen in any other species we have studied." "Speak." Melis hesitated. This was the part she had struggled to understand. "They are divided, Supreme Arbiter. They have no unified government. Their world is split into nearly 200 separate nations. They fight wars against each other constantly. They have weapons that could destroy their entire planet, and they have pointed these weapons at each other for generations." Keth Voran turned back, all 4 eyes focused on the scientist. "They fight among themselves?" "Endlessly. Their history is nothing but war after war. They fight over resources. They fight over beliefs. They fight over invisible lines drawn in the dirt. They even fight over the color of each other's skin." For a moment, the throne room was silent. Then Keth Voran began to laugh. It was a deep rumbling sound that echoed off the crystal walls. "They are animals," he said. "They cannot even control themselves. They are no threat to anyone but each other." "That was my conclusion as well, Supreme Arbiter." Keth Voran walked to his throne and sat down. The seat was carved from a single piece of diamond, taken from the core of a conquered world. He had sat in this throne when he ordered the destruction of the Kethmari. He had sat here when the last of the Vron begged for mercy. He had never once felt doubt. "How many ships would we need?" he asked. "For a species this primitive? A single conquest fleet would be more than enough. 40 vessels. Perhaps less. And how long until they submit? 3 rotations at most. They have no defenses against our weapons. Their militaries are designed to fight each other, not a superior force. Once they see our power, they will surrender. They always do. HFY nodded slowly. This was how it had always been. The Dominion would arrive, demonstrate its power, and the conquered species would bow. Those who resisted were destroyed. Those who submitted were put to work. The system had functioned perfectly for 12,000 years. I will send Fleet Commander Euristel, he decided. She has conquered 6 worlds in my name. She will add Earth to that number. A wise choice, Supreme Arbiter? And Meles? Yes, Supreme Arbiter. When the humans are brought to their knees, I want some of them sent here, to the palace. I wish to see these divided creatures with my own eyes. I want to understand how a species can be so foolish as to fight itself. Meles bowed low. It will be done. After she left, HFY sat alone in his throne room and watched the hologram of Earth slowly rotate. Such a small world. Such fragile creatures. They did not know it yet, but their freedom had just ended. Their entire history, all their wars and achievements and dreams, would soon be nothing but a footnote in the great story of the Valoran Dominion. He felt almost sorry for them. In another part of the palace, Fleet Commander Euristel received her orders. She was young for a commander, only 90 years old, but she had proven herself in battle many times. Her scales were the deep red of a warrior caste, and her forearms bore the scars of a dozen campaigns. She studied the data on the humans with professional interest. Weak bodies, divided loyalties, primitive weapons. This would not be a battle. It would be a harvest. She assembled her fleet within a week. 40 warships, each one capable of destroying a city in a single shot. 10,000 ground troops, armed with weapons that could cut through steel like paper. Transport ships to carry the survivors back to Dominion space, where they would begin their new lives as servants. As her flagship entered the faster-than-light cargo that would take them to Earth, Euristel allowed herself a moment of satisfaction. This mission would bring her glory. The humans would fall, just like every other species before them. She could not have known how wrong she was. Across the galaxy, on the small blue world called Earth, humans went about their daily lives. They worked and played and fought and loved. They worried about their jobs and their families and their futures. They had no idea that death was coming for them across the stars. But when it arrived, they would teach the Valoran Dominion a lesson that the galaxy would never forget. Some prey bites back. 6 months after the invasion began, the Valorans controlled every major city on Earth. Their flags flew over the ruins of capitals. Their soldiers patrolled the streets. Their ships hung in the sky like angry gods. They controlled the cities. But they controlled nothing else. In the mountains of Afghanistan, resistance fighters who had spent generations fighting each other now fought side by side against the aliens. In the jungles of Vietnam, farmers used the same tunnels their grandparents had dug to hide from one invader to hide from another. In the forests of Finland, hunters who knew every tree and stone made the frozen wilderness a graveyard for Valoran patrols. The humans had lost the cities, so they stopped fighting for cities. They fought everywhere else. Fleet Commander Euristel had received her reinforcements. 100 additional ships, 50,000 more soldiers. It should have been enough to crush any resistance. Instead, her losses continued to climb. The humans were learning. Every dead Valoran soldier was stripped of weapons and armor. Every crashed vehicle was taken apart piece by piece. Every scrap of technology was studied, analyzed, and understood. In a secret facility deep beneath the Swiss Alps, the greatest scientists humanity had ever produced worked day and night. They came from every country. American physicists worked alongside Chinese engineers. Russian weapons experts shared notes with Israeli programmers. Indian mathematicians collaborated with German chemists. They had no time for old hatreds. They had no patience for politics. They had one goal: understand the enemy's technology and turn it against them. Dr. Sarah Chen led the team. She was 42 years old, and before the invasion, she had been studying theoretical physics at MIT. Now she studied Valorn energy, weapons, while surviving on 3 hours of sleep and cold coffee. On the 200th day of the invasion, she made a breakthrough. "I understand it," she whispered, staring at the alien device in front of her. "I finally understand it." The Valorn faster-than-light drive was not magic. It was physics. Strange. Physics. Physics that humanity had never discovered on its own, but physics nonetheless. And physics could be learned. Within a week, our team had built a working prototype. Within a month, they had improved it. The Valorans had taken 300 years to develop faster than light travel after discovering the basic principles. Humanity did it in 8 months. When asked how this was possible, Dr. Chen gave a simple answer: "We didn't have 300 years. We had to be faster." News of the breakthrough spread through the resistance like wildfire. For the first time since the invasion began, humans dared to hope. They were no longer just surviving. They were preparing to fight back. On the Valorn homeworld, Supreme Arbiter Keth Voran received a report that made his blood run cold. "They have done what?" he demanded. "They have reverse-engineered our drive technology, Supreme Arbiter." The messenger's voice trembled. "Our spies report they are already building ships. Impossible. They are primitives. They cannot possibly understand our technology." "The evidence suggests otherwise, Supreme Arbiter." Keth Voran dismissed the messenger and sat alone in his throne room. For the first time in his long life, he felt something he had never felt before. It took him a moment to recognize it. Fear. On Earth, the resistance prepared for the next phase of the war. General James Morrison had been a 4-star general in the United States Army. Now he commanded the combined military forces of the entire planet. It was a job that would have been impossible before the invasion. Now it was simply necessary. "We can't keep fighting like this," he told the Council of Resistance Leaders. "We're bleeding them, but they're bleeding us worse. If we stay on defense, we lose. Eventually, they'll just bomb us from orbit until there's nothing left. Then, what do you suggest?" asked General Yu Wei of China. "We attack." The room fell silent. "Attack?" said Marshal Volkov of Russia. "Attack how?" "We have one working FTL drive. They have thousands of ships. We won't attack their ships. We'll attack their empire." Morrison pulled up a holographic map. It showed the Valoran Dominion. 2,000 conquered worlds spread across half the galaxy. Trade routes, supply lines, communication networks. "The Valorans are spread thin," he explained. "They've conquered so many species that they can't watch them all. Their subject races hate them. They're just waiting for a chance to rebel." He pointed to a cluster of systems near the edge of Dominion space. "We hit here. We show the galaxy that the Dominion can be hurt. We give the other species hope." "With what army?" asked General Singh of India. "With the only army that matters. U.S." 3 weeks later, a transmission reached the Valoran homeworld. It was broadcast on an open channel, so every ship in the Dominion fleet could hear it. A woman appeared on the screen. She wore a general's uniform, and her face was hard and tired and absolutely unafraid. She was General Catherine Hayes, and she had been chosen to deliver humanity's message. "People of the Valoran Dominion," she said, "6 months ago, you came to our world. You killed our families. You burned our cities. You thought we were weak because we were divided. You were wrong." Behind her, the hologram showed ships. Human ships. Dozens of them, built in secret factories hidden around the world. They were ugly, crude things compared to Valoran vessels. But they flew. Our divisions made us strong, Hayes continued, because we learned to fight in 1,000 different ways. We learned to survive against impossible odds. We learned that surrender is not an option. She leaned forward, and her eyes were cold. You came to our home. Now we're coming to yours. You wanted servants, you got enemies. And we don't stop. We don't give up. We don't surrender. That's not who we are. The transmission ended. On the Valoran homeworld, Supreme Arbiter Kethvoran watched the message again and again. Each time, he felt the fear grow stronger. He had thought humanity was weak. He had been so terribly wrong. And now, across the galaxy, other conquered species watched the same message. They saw the human ships. They heard the human words. And for the first time in generations, they began to remember something they had almost forgotten. Hope. The real war was about to begin. The Valoran fleet arrived on a Tuesday. Morning dot, they appeared without warning above the major cities of Earth, New York, London, Beijing, Moscow, Tokyo, Mumbai, 40 massive warships, each one larger than anything humans had ever built. They blocked out the sun and cast shadows that stretched for miles. For exactly 1 hour, there was silence. People stood in the streets and stared up at the sky. Governments tried to establish contact. Military forces scrambled to respond. The whole world held its breath. Then the message came. It was broadcast on every frequency, in every language, simultaneously. People of Earth, this is Fleet Commander Uristal of the Valoran Dominion. Your world now belongs to us. You will surrender all weapons. You will present your leaders for judgment. You will accept your place as servants of the Dominion. Resistance is pointless. You have 1 hour to comply. If you do not, your cities will burn. In the command center of her flagship, Uristal waited. She had delivered this message many times before. The response was always the same: panic, confusion, and then surrender. It was simply a matter of waiting. The hour passed. No surrender came. Ristal frowned. This was unusual. Perhaps the humans had not understood. Perhaps they needed a demonstration of Dominion power. She gave the order, and a single beam of light shot down from her flagship. It struck an empty island in the Pacific Ocean. The island ceased to exist. A mushroom cloud rose into the sky, visible from 1,000 miles away. That was a warning, she broadcast. The next strike will not hit empty land. Surrender now. The response came 30 minutes later. It was not what she expected. Every nuclear weapon on Earth launched at once. Ristal watched the missiles rise from the planet's surface. Hundreds of them, then thousands, shrieking upward toward her fleet. She felt no fear. Valoran shields could stop weapons 100 times more powerful than these primitive explosives. The missile struck. The shields held. Not a single ship was damaged. Is that their answer? She asked her officers. Do they truly believe they can fight us? Before anyone could respond, the sensors screamed a warning. Something else was coming. Not missiles this time. Thousands of objects, too small to be weapons, rising from the surface. They moved erratically, changing direction in ways that missiles could not. What are those? Uristal demanded. Unknown, Commander. They appeared to be aircraft, small ones, piloted by humans. Fighter jets. Thousands of them, from every nation on Earth. Americans flew alongside Russians. Chinese pilots coordinated with Japanese. Old enemies rose together to face a common threat. They knew they could not win. They knew their weapons could not scratch the Valoran shields. They came anyway. Ristal destroyed them easily. Wave after wave of human pilots died in balls of fire. But more kept coming. For every jet she shot down, 2 more appeared. They were not trying to destroy her ships. They were buying time. Time for something else. The ground invasion began 3 days later. 10,000 Valoran soldiers landed in cities across the world. They expected the humans to run. They expected fear and chaos and quick surrender. They found something very different. In New York, a Valoran squad advanced through the empty streets of Manhattan. Their armor could stop any human weapon. Their sensors could detect any ambush. They were the most advanced soldiers in the galaxy. A rifle cracked from a distant window. The shot bounced harmlessly off the squad leader's helmet. He turned to locate the shooter. That was when the building next to him exploded. The humans had packed it with every explosive they could find. Gas lines, chemical fertilizer, industrial chemicals. The blast killed 3 Valoran soldiers instantly. The rest were suddenly fighting in a cloud of smoke and dust. Their sensors useless, their communication cut off. Humans emerged from the rubble. Not soldiers. Ordinary people. Construction workers with sledgehammers. Shop owners with hunting rifles. A teenage girl with a homemade bomb. They fought with a fury that the Valorans had never seen. The squad leader killed them. His weapons were far superior. But for every human that fell, more appeared. They came from the subway tunnels. They dropped from windows. They attacked from every direction at once. By the time reinforcements arrived, the squad leader was the only survivor. He had killed over 100 humans. But his armor was cracked, his weapons were drained, and his confidence was shattered. The same story repeated across the world. In Moscow, Russian soldiers who had trained their whole lives to fight Americans now died beside them. In Beijing, factory workers dismantled Valoran soldiers with tools meant for building cars. In Mumbai, 1 million people surrounded a Valoran battalion and simply refused to move, no matter how many of them died. Fleet Commander Rusto received the reports in growing disbelief. Casualties were mounting. Not quickly, but steadily. Her soldiers were winning every battle, but the humans would not stop fighting. She captured a human prisoner and had him brought to her ship. He was a soldier, his uniform torn and bloody. One of his arms was broken. But when she entered the room, he stood up straight and looked her in the eye. "Why do you resist?" she demanded. "You cannot win. Your weapons are nothing. Your armies are nothing. Every hour you fight, more of your people die. Why do you not surrender?" The human laughed. It was a harsh, bitter sound. "You want to know why we fight?" "Yes, because that's what we do. We've been fighting since before we could write. We fight over land. We fight over ideas. We fight over things that don't even matter. We've been killing each other for 10,000 years." He leaned forward, and his eyes were cold. "You think you scare us?" "Lady, we scare ourselves." Yuri still had the prisoner taken away. Then she sat alone in her command center for a long time, thinking about what he had said. That night, she sent a message to the Dominion homeworld. For the first time in her career, she requested reinforcements. The Category 7 subjugation was officially upgraded to Category 3. On Earth, the humans kept fighting. They knew they were losing. They knew they could not win. But they had learned something important in those first terrible days. The Valorans could be hurt. They could be surprised. And if they could be surprised, then maybe, just maybe, they could be beaten down in basements and bunkers across the world. Scientists began studying captured Valoran technology. Resistance leaders began coordinating across borders. Old enemies became new allies. The invasion was only beginning. But so was the human response. And the Valorans had no idea what was coming. The first human fleet entered Valoran space on the anniversary of the invasion. It was not a coincidence. Humanity wanted the Dominion to remember this day forever. Fleet Admiral Chun, Wayland sat in the command chair of the HSS Vengeance. It was the flagship of the human fleet, and it was her responsibility to lead humanity's first attack on enemy territory. She was 63 years old. She had spent 40 years in the Chinese Navy. Nothing in her career had prepared her for this. She was ready anyway. "Admiral," her tactical officer reported, "we're detecting a Valoran defense station ahead. 20 ships. Their configuration? Standard formation. They're arranged in a defensive sphere around the station." Chun smiled. Standard formation. The Valarans always use standard formations. After 12,000 years of easy victories, they had forgotten how to improvise. Humanity had never forgotten. "Signal all ships," she ordered. "Execute. Attack pattern Hannibal." The human fleet split into 3 groups. The center group advanced directly toward the enemy, while the other 2 curved around the flanks. It was a simple maneuver, one that human generals had used for thousands of years. The Carthaginian general Hannibal had used it to destroy a Roman army at Cannae. Napoleon had used it at Austerlitz. Now Chun used it among the stars. The Valarans did not recognize the danger until it was too late. They focused their fire on the center group, just as Chun had intended. When the flanking groups struck their sides, their formation collapsed. The battle lasted less than an hour. 18 Valoran ships were destroyed. The defense station was captured. Human casualties were minimal. It was the first human victory in space. It would not be the last. News of the battle spread across the Dominion like fire. For 12,000 years, the Valarans had been undefeated. Now a species they had dismissed as primitive had destroyed one of their fleets. The subject species of the Dominion watched and waited. Some began to whisper among themselves. Some began to plan. On the Valoran homeworld, Supreme Arbiter Kethvorin raged. He ordered his best admirals to hunt down the human fleet. He promised rewards for their destruction, punishments for failure. He sent ship after ship into battle. None of them came back. The humans did not fight like any enemy the Valorans had ever faced. They refused to engage in open battle unless the odds heavily favored them. They struck supply convoys instead of warships. They attacked communication stations instead of military bases. They appeared without warning, destroyed their targets, and vanished before reinforcements could arrive. Admiral Chun drew on every military tradition in human history. From Sun Tzu, she took the art of deception, making the enemy see strength where there was weakness and weakness where there was strength. From the Vikings, she took the lightning raid, striking fast and withdrawing before the enemy could respond. From the Viet Cong, she took the patience of the guerrilla, understanding that sometimes the best battle was the one you didn't fight. The Valarans could not adapt. Their military doctrine was rigid, built on 10,000 years of tradition. They knew how to crush inferior enemies with overwhelming force. They did not know how to fight an enemy that refused to be crushed. Colony after colony fell. Not to direct assault, but to rebellion. The subject species saw the human victories and found their courage. On 100 worlds, slaves rose against their masters. On 100 more, the seeds of rebellion were planted. The Dominion was crumbling. Fleet Commander Eurystal had been recalled from Earth to defend the homeworld. She had started the war confident in her superiority. Now she sat in her command center and studied reports of defeat after defeat. "We underestimated them," she said to her officers. "We all did." "They are still inferior," insisted one of her captains. "Their technology is crude. Their ships are weaker than ours. We should be able to destroy them easily. Then why haven't we?" Ristel asked. The captain had no answer. That night, Ristel did something no Valoran commander had ever done. She requested a meeting with a human prisoner. Not to interrogate him, but to understand him. The prisoner was a pilot named James Cooper. He had been shot down during a raid on a Valoran shipyard. He was young, barely 30 years old, with a scar across his face and eyes that had seen too much death. "Why do you keep fighting?" Ristel asked. "Your planet is still under our control. Your families are hostages. You have every reason to surrender. Why don't you?" Cooper was quiet for a long moment. Then he spoke. "Do you know how humans tell time?" he asked. "We measure it in years. One orbit around our sun. That's how long we've been fighting each other. Thousands of years. We've invented a new way to kill each other roughly every generation." He leaned forward. "Do you know what that means?" "It means every tactic you can think of, we've already tried. Every strategy you can imagine, we've already used. You think you're better than us because you have better ships and better weapons? Maybe you are. But we've been practicing war since before your species existed. We're good at it. We're really, really good at it. But you lose," Ristel said. "In every battle, more of you die than us." "That's fine," Cooper said. "We're used to losing people. We've lost more humans in our own wars than you've killed since the invasion started. And we're still here. We'll always be here. You can kill us, but you can't break us. That's the difference between us." Ristel sent Cooper back to his cell. She spent the rest of the night thinking about what he had said. The next morning, she went to the Supreme Arbiter with a recommendation she never thought she would make. "We should negotiate," she said. "We should offer the humans peace." Kethvorn stared at her as if she had lost her mind. "Negotiate? With animals? We are the Valoran Dominion. We do not negotiate with inferior species." "They are not inferior," Ristel said. "They are different. And if we continue this war, we will lose everything." She was right. 3 months later, the human fleet entered the Valoran home system. Behind them came ships from a dozen formerly conquered species, all of them eager to repay 12,000 years of slavery. The reckoning had come at last. The human fleet surrounded Valor Prime like a ring of fire. 200 ships, built in secret factories on a conquered world, now hung in orbit around the heart of the Dominion. Beside them floated vessels from the Kethmari, the Vron, the Solari, and a dozen other species that had been slaves for generations. Together, they had more than enough firepower to reduce the Valoran homeworld to ash. Supreme Arbiter Kethvorin stood in his throne room and watched the enemy ships through the great crystal windows. His empire was gone. His fleets were destroyed. His subject species had turned against him. Everything he had built across 300 years of rule had crumbled in less than 3 dots, and now the humans had come for him. "Supreme Arbiter." His aide entered the room, head bowed low. "The human fleet has sent a message. They wish to discuss terms of surrender." "They want us to surrender?" "No, Supreme Arbiter. They want to offer terms. They say they do not wish to destroy us." Kethvorn did not understand. The Dominion had burned human cities. They had killed millions of humans. They had enslaved entire populations. By all the laws of war that the Valorans recognized, the humans had earned the right to destroy Valor Prime. It was what the Dominion would have done. "Bring their representative to me," he ordered. 1 hour later, Fleet Admiral Chen Wei-Lin walked into the throne room of the Valoran Dominion. She wore a simple uniform, dark blue with gold trim. She carried no weapons. She walked alone, without guards or aides. She was not afraid. Kethvorn studied her as she approached. She was small, even by human standards. Her hair was gray. Her face was lined with age and exhaustion. She looked like she had not slept in weeks. She also looked like someone who had won. "Supreme Arbiter Kethvorin," she said. Her voice was calm and steady. "I am Admiral Chen Wei-Lin of the United Earth Fleet. I have been authorized to present terms for the end of hostilities." "Terms?" Cathvarn's voice was bitter. You have won. You have my empire at your mercy. What terms could you possibly offer except destruction? Chun reached into her pocket and produced a small data tablet. She held it out to him. These terms. Cathvarn took the tablet. He read the terms slowly, his four eyes widening with each line. Dissolution of the Valoran military above a basic defense force. Independence for all subject species. Reparations for Earth and other conquered worlds. War crimes tribunals for those who had committed atrocities. And one final condition. Remember? Cathvarn looked up from the tablet. What does this mean? It means we want you to live with this, Chun said. We want every Valoran child for the next 1,000 generations to learn what happened here. We want them to know that their ancestors looked at a small blue world and saw easy prey. And we want them to remember the price of that mistake. You're not going to destroy us? No. Why not? The question came out almost as a plea. We killed your people. We burned your cities. We would have enslaved your entire species. Why would you show us mercy? Chen was silent for a long moment. When she spoke, her voice was tired but firm. Because we're not like you. She walked to the great crystal window and looked out at the stars. Her fleet hung in the void, waiting for her command. One word from her, and Valor Prime would burn. We know what we're capable of, she said. We've seen the worst of ourselves. We've committed genocide against our own kind. We've built weapons that could destroy our world 100 times over. We know exactly how dark we can be. She turned to face the Supreme Arbiter. But we also know how to stop. We know how to look at an enemy and choose mercy instead of revenge. We know how to build instead of destroy. That's not weakness. That's the hardest kind of strength there is. Cathvarn set down the data tablet. His hands were trembling. You could kill us all, he said. You've earned that right. And you're choosing not to. Yes. Why? Just tell me why. Chun smiled. It was a small, sad smile, the smile of someone who had seen too much death. Because the war is over, she said. And now we have to live with what comes after. We can choose to be conquerors, like you were. We can spend the next 1,000 years making your people suffer for what you did to us. Or we can choose to be something better. She walked back toward him and picked up the data tablet. You thought our divisions made us weak. You were wrong. Our divisions taught us how to hate. But they also taught us how to forgive. How to rebuild. How to make peace with enemies we had fought for generations. That's why we won. Not because we were stronger. Because we were wiser. She placed the tablet in his hands. Sign this. Accept the terms. Let the healing begin. Cathvarn stared at the tablet for a long time. Then, slowly, he pressed his seal to the document. The war was over. 3 years later, a monument was built on the site of the first Valoran landing on Earth. It was a simple thing. Just a pillar of black stone with names carved into its surface. The names of those who had died in the invasion. The names of those who had fought back. The names of those who had sacrificed everything so that humanity could survive. At the base of the monument, there was an inscription. It was written in every human language and in Valoran as well. They thought we were weak. They were wrong. They thought we would surrender. We did not. They thought we would seek revenge. We chose mercy instead. This monument stands as a reminder. Humanity does not forget, but humanity also forgives. Above the earth, ships from 100 worlds passed through the sky. Valoran traders, finally free of their empire's military ways. Cathmari scientists, exploring the stars their ancestors had been forbidden to see. Human vessels, carrying ambassadors and explorers to every corner of the galaxy. The universe had changed. Humanity had taken its place among the stars, not as conquerors, but as something far more important: protectors, teachers, friends. And somewhere, in the back of every alien mind, a simple truth remained: never underestimate the humans. They had learned to fight in 10,000 wars, but more importantly, they had learned when to stop.